Hi, welcome. It's Denise here, and we're doing a ball rolling session today. So we'll be working on the hamstrings, back of the thigh. We'll be working on the diaphragm, kind of just catching the edge of it and working through the obliques of the core. And then we'll work on the psoas. So this is some tricky spots, but we're using the same tool for all of it. So this is an alpha ball from Yoga Tune-Up. And so let's begin. I think it's a good idea to actually do a little test sometimes. So if you just go into a forward fold, either standing or seated, it's probably going to give you some sense of how your hamstrings feel today, okay? And a lot of times when people have tight hamstrings, they think they should be stretched. But you're going to get an even better result if you just work on them with the ball. Now, why is that? Well, we're going to be working right from the sitting bone, which is where your hamstrings attach, and then down toward one of its tendons here. Then we'll come back and we'll work down towards one of its tendons there. And the reason why this is so effective is, and you see I'm going into a shoot the duck position here, okay? So I'm sitting right on my hamstring tendons, okay, which is sort of below the big bone. I'll show you quickly on my skeleton right here. So the hamstring tendons come off this bone. So I'm going to put the ball right here, as though like that. And here we go. So in this shoot the duck position, I'm going to begin. And it's a good idea to just find your tendon. It's pretty strong, thick tendon. I'm sitting on it. I'm actually going to sit on it for probably close to a minute, and then I'm going to start rotating my leg a little bit. So when I do that, I'm just going to catch and shear different aspects of that tendon. And it could be tender. Sometimes we stress and over compress that tendon with a lot of forward folding and stuff. So don't be surprised if it's a little bit tender, but it's okay. You're doing some good work now. Move a little bit further down toward the knee, just a little tiny bit, 1 centimeter, half an inch, something like that. And then continue with this rotational movement that we're doing. You see I have blocks under my hands. That's just to get me up a little bit higher. If you don't have blocks, you'll have to probably bend forward a little bit more. So this is keeping me a bit more comfortable. I'm going to start moving down. And so what I'll do is I'll move down toward the outer aspect of my knee. This is my big hamstring tendon right here. So I want to head toward that as I move down the leg. And each time I move down, I'm going to do these rotations. And then I'm going to go forward and back a little bit. So I can use my hands to help me and use this other foot that I'm stepping on to help me in this kind of shoot the duck position. So I'm going to move down a little bit further. I'll do more rotations again. So these are basically the two techniques that we're doing, these rotational movements and then these little kind of longitudinal movements. They're kind of short, and you might find some really tender spots along the way. Feel free to stay and just sit into them if you need to for a little while, because just putting that compression on them can kind of calm everything down, and it already feels better. Ultimately, what we're doing, as I said, is not stretching this tissue per se. We're actually helping to stimulate the hydration of the tissue, which is really what makes movement feel better. So you see I'm just using these up and down longitudinal movements. They can be very intense, and you might have some really hot spots, but you're hydrating this tissue. You're stimulating the hydration of this tissue. You don't even have to stretch, because oftentimes, our body is going to rebel against stretching, and we end up contracting the muscle when we're trying to stretch it, and it just gets everything even madder than it was before. So now I'm almost all the way at my tendon. I'm just going to do my rotations one more time, and then I'll do this final run. So now I'm very close to that distal tendon. So now I'm going to go all the way up and down if I can. So I'm going to just stand up for 1 second, show you the pathway that I just followed, just so it's really clear. I came from my sitting bone down this edge. Now I'm going to sit back down and I'm going to go this way. Okay? So let's prepare for that. I'm going to start back up at the top. And you know, if you need more time, please just pause the video and spend a little bit more time. I encourage you to do that. Okay? So we're still using our same two techniques, this rolling of the thigh and the up and down movement. And remember, anytime you can stay put and work a little bit longer or just be still. Sometimes when we move over the ball, like I've been showing you, it can be more intense. If you just sit still for a bit, it's less intense, but you're still getting lots of good work done, okay? It just happens a little bit slower. So I'm moving up and down, and then I'm going into rotation. And sometimes I like to even add pressure. So you see now I'm pushing down with my hand into that tissue. So if you're finding that it's really tender, sometimes more pressure actually feels better. Again, this kind of slows down your progress maybe, but it's worth it and it makes such a difference in the tissue. We're going to do a forward fold after we do this, and you'll see that just even working the time that we have is going to make the sensation quite different than it was the first time you felt it. Okay, rolling it forward and back, adding some pressure. I actually really like adding lots of pressure for myself. You actually have fewer pressure receptors than you do for things like tissue stretch. So believe it or not, you're actually making it a little bit less intense, depending on where the sensation is coming from for you. Hopefully it's not from anything like inflammation, because you shouldn't be rolling on that. Okay, let's take it down one more time. And we're continuing with our rotation, continuing with our up and down movement. And possibly, if you feel like that's a juicy spot, adding some additional compression. All of those pathways are open to you, and then we're going to hop up and go up and down. And so now to make this sort of a final technique, I'm going to turn my leg, catch the outside hamstring, spin my leg inward and catch the inside. So you see I can take this position and I can spin in for this position. And now we're going to do a little test. So we just worked one leg. I want you to forward fold, close your eyes, and just feel the difference between your legs. So things like feeling what it feels like the size of the leg is, and if it feels soft or resistant, those kinds of sensations. See if you can tell a difference. So let's go on to our other leg. So remember, we're starting up at that big hamstring tendon. We're going to sit up on top. We're stepping down into our opposite leg, using the blocks to just keep us comfy, and then we're beginning our rotations. You can really sink into it and be still if you want for a couple of minutes, or you can go into these rotational movements, starting with a little bit of forward and back movement. We're going to go down the more lateral hamstring first. So we'll move a little bit. I'm just moving about a centimeter or so. That's about half an inch or so at a time when I do move down the ball down the leg. And you know, it's so important. I'm giving you a little bit of a recipe and some guidance here, but it's very important that you just kind of follow the sensation in your body. And over time, you're going to get it just right for your body. You know, you have to work with a level of sensation. Sometimes, you know, depending on how active we've been or even how sedentary we've been, the sensation's going to be quite different. So you just got to work with what's present in your body today and just be able to respond to that. And, you know, trust yourself. Trust yourself, because following the sensation gives you a lot of the information you need. One thing, you know, a lot of people think that the ball always has to be rolling because these are called rolling techniques. But as you can see, often the ball is not doing, it's just sitting there and I'm moving my body over it. So that's how I generally work with it. Now I am going to roll because I'm rolling up and down. I'm finished on that side. I'm going to start back up here at the top, going into sitting on that tendon again and beginning to work down toward the hamstring that's on the more inner thigh. You're kind of going to catch the adductors a little bit too here. So really nice. Rotating in and out. Sometimes we want to add that extra pressure. Take it down a little bit further. You know, if I'm moving too fast for you, and that's quite possible that I am, please just pause the video and take your time. Oftentimes people ask me, you know, how long should a rolling session be? You know, it can actually be anywhere from about 10 minutes. You wouldn't get a lot of areas worked in 10 minutes, probably just one, but that's fine. And then, you know, you probably could work for about half an hour to 45 minutes, but you'd have to be moving around. That would be too much time to spend in one area, that's for sure. You know, you don't have to continue working the tissue until there's no more tender sensation anymore. That's probably going to end up overworking the tissue. Okay, so we're just about done on this side. So I'm going to grab my block and we'll do some nice long flushing strokes here. And I'm going to spin my legs so I can catch the outer hamstring and spin it in to catch the inner hamstring. And getting all of that tissue that I worked flushed out with fresh circulation, fresh stimuli for those little proteoglycans that need to be stimulated. The fibroblasts actually produce those. All right, let's take another forward fold and just enjoy those nice calm hamstrings. They feel so different now. So now let's go into working our diaphragm. So what we're going to be able to do here is kind of come under the last ribs. So right along here, we want to start not in the middle, but off to the side. I'm going to put the ball here and work this way. So just kind of working along this path. This is going to work quite a lot of our obliques, which are these outer muscles of your core, and also like some of the deeper ones. So you've got 2 layers of obliques. Runaway ball happens every time. And then, you know, you're not going to be going into rectus abdominis quite so much. So let's begin. I'm going to lie right down on the floor for this. And see, I'm starting off center. Don't be right on your ribs. You want to be in the soft tissue underneath your ribs. So you're coming down and onto your forearms, okay? So this is not the greatest practice if you just ate, obviously, but we're gonna just take a few deep breaths and contract, relax. So I'm gonna take a big inhale and push the wall of my belly into the ball, and then I'm gonna relax and let my body soften onto the ball. I'm gonna do that again. Inhale, push the belly out. Exhale, let it soften back onto the ball. Inhale, push the belly out. Push, push, push. And exhale, soften. Usually about 3 or 4 rounds of that will get you into the tissue pretty far. Then I'm just going to sway my body from side to side. Okay, and this is going to take me across those fibers. Make it nice and gentle, and you don't have to do it a whole bunch of times because we're just going to move it a little bit. So again, it's about maybe 1 inch, maybe 2 centimeters, something like that, and we're doing our contract, relax again. So push the wall of the belly into the ball, push, push, push. Make sure you're not on a rib, you're below the ribs, and then exhale, soften, and let your body wrap around the ball. Again, inhale, push it out. And exhale, soften onto the ball. Good, one more time. Inhale, push it out, push, push, push. Exhale and soften. And then we'll start to shift from side to side. So if by chance you happen to have, some kind of injury or limitation in the shoulders, you could hold the shoulders still and move the hips from side to side. Or just do it as an experiment. It's another option for you. Okay, if you're using your hips, feel free to put your head down. So just another position. It's very important to stay as comfortable as you can while you're doing your techniques so that the body is not kind of guarding or trying to protect itself. We're moving one more time, and I just want to show you quickly that I'm not moving straight across. I'm kind of moving down as I move. So this is my last position, right in that space between the last rib and my hip bone. And I'm going to use my contract, relax, pushing out into the ball, and then softening my body around the ball. Really let go. Again, push it out and soften. One more time, push it out and soften. Good, and then you can work with the upper body, or you might decide to work with the lower body. And once you get used to doing this, you might, be much more mobile. You might be really grinding it out and getting in there. And sometimes that's really a good thing, but I think at first, as you're getting to know your own tissue and get to know, how to be comfortable doing these techniques, just take it easy. You don't have to be really, really doing big movement. You don't have to be wearing yourself out. Okay, so now we've gone all the way across, and I'm going to try to trace back my steps from toward the center, toward the outside, and just finish up on that side. And then push up and back. Just take a couple of deep breaths, and we'll get into the other side, okay? So remember, we're not starting right in the middle. We're starting off to the side. I'm going to put the ball in the tissue and get down onto my belly. And I begin with the contract, relax. So I'm inhaling and pushing out into the ball. Exhale and soften down onto the ball again. Inhale, push it out. Exhale, soften. Let the body really wrap around the ball if possible. And one more time, push it out and soften onto the ball. Moving my upper body. Or remember, you can hold the upper body still, move the lower body. All right, let's move it down just a little bit so it's sort of down and to the side. And then we begin. Push out into the ball and soften around. These big breaths are really good communication with your nervous system. Just letting your nervous system know that it's okay to let go. Let this happen because it's good for you. Moving your upper body or your lower body. Feel free to experiment. It doesn't have to be done a certain way. But it is good to have a little guidance at first because it's really hard to know even where to begin or what to try. So I don't mind giving you recipes, that's for sure. All right, I'm going to move to my final position. So I'm in that space between my last rib and my hip bone. And I want to start with pushing out and exhale, softening onto the ball. Push it out. Feel free to do more positions if you want. If you want to do, make smaller movements, that's totally fine. This is your practice. And last one, I'm going to soften, really soften, let my body really wrap around the ball. And then I'm going to just make some small movements, kind of letting the ball find a way into the tissue. Maybe I want to use a little bit of pelvic movement. You can see how everything's connected. And even though we're just catching the very, very edge of the tissues that are connected to the diaphragm, even more than the diaphragm itself, it is influencing the diaphragm quite a bit. And you'll notice that in your ability to take big breaths after this. Okay, so I'm going to make a few bigger movements, just kind of retrace the area that I worked, and just doing that as kind of a flushing technique. and then we will lift up and out of it. All right. So nice deep breath, and I'll show you where we're going next. Okay, so the psoas is your deepest hip flexor muscle, and it's attached to the bodies and these transverse processes of the vertebra, and it actually comes straight down in front of this bone. So it's part of those tendinous, those really bulky tendons that you can feel there, and it attaches to this little knob of bone on your femur bone. Okay, so it goes straight down and across like that. So we'll start at about, well, between the navel and this bone here. So we're going to find a space right about there, and then we'll do a few points right here. This is what I call the tunnel. So we want to just work on the tunnel. Okay, let's do it. So let's start over here. Here's my navel, here's my hip bone. I'm going to start right there. Okay, bone, navel, ball goes there. Okay, and once again, I'm down on my forearms. And believe me, the best way to get in here is with this contract relax. So we're going to push out really, really strongly, push the ball, the abdominal wall into the ball, and then exhale and release. So if already you're feeling something cranky, work with this pushing out and softening down around the ball a little bit longer, okay? That is the very best way to get in there. So taking 3 breaths like that, and then we're also going to work with the windshield wiper legs, okay? That helps to wiggle the ball a little bit deeper into the tissue, and then we'll come to stillness with that. Look at my toes. I'm going to tuck my toes down. And then on the same side that I'm working, I'm going to work with straightening my knee and pressing into my toes. I'm going to go off and on a couple of times. Push, push, push. If that doesn't really do much for you, then keep your opposite leg grounded and lift this leg right up. That's going to be quite a lot more intense. Okay? And then we're moving on. So once again, kind of like the diaphragm, we're moving in and down toward that place where it crosses the hip. Okay, so we're going to push out into the ball and soften around it again. This is helping us get the ball in. It actually helps move your viscera out of the way and helps you get right in and apply pressure to the psoas. Okay, so now we've taken our 3 breaths. We're going to move the body over the ball just a little bit. We're kind of moving across the fibers of our psoas. And if you find anything that feels kind of hot or tender, feel free to just stay on it and do your contract relax again. Push down into the ball and soften. Do that a few more times. It's a really good way to treat those hot spots, especially in this area. Okay, and then we'll see about using the toes. I'm going to push down into the toes and lift the knee. And try that a few times. Push down into the toes and lift that knee. And again, if you feel like you want to go deeper than that, and if you have a really strong experience, then you can go ahead and lift your whole leg up. You know, your psoas is kind of the root of your leg, attaching your leg to your spine. Okay, now we're going to move forward just a little bit more, and I want you to just imagine where you're coming here. You want to put it the ball right about here, okay, across these tendons. Okay, so let's try that. This is where I'm putting it. Okay, right there. And you know, now you're pinning those tendons against a bone, so you may feel it fairly intensely. It's so good for you though. Really removes the congestion that can be in that area. So now, because you can actually still push out and relax, believe it or not, you still have some fibers from your abdominals all the way down there. And relax and push out and relax. Once again, I'm going to windshield wiper. Woo. and it's pretty interesting sensation-wise. Just coming across some pretty sensitive areas. And then I'm going to just plant my toes. Now again, if you have inflammation around your hip for whatever reason, or say hip impingement or something, I hope you know that this would not be beneficial for that, okay? Compressing it and whatever is not what it needs right now. This is for when, you know, you have normal, relatively healthy tissue, but you still need to do some work because you use your body. And it's actually great if you're sitting a lot, you know, if you have a desk job or something like that. This can really relieve those congested tissues. Okay, so that is our full tunnel. If you want, you can see about rolling through the tunnel. Again, this is pretty intense. I'm used to it though, so I can handle it. But if that's a bit too much for you, then please just finish with the knee straightening. Let's go to the other side and we'll get some practice over there. So once again, we're finding our navel, our hip bone, and we're coming somewhere halfway between. So here we go. Down onto the ball, and I'm working with pushing my abdominal wall into the ball and softening back around it. Okay, here's my hip bone. You can see where I've got the ball is just a little bit higher and toward the center line of the body. Push it out and soften down around it. Some of the benefits of working on the psoas are, you know, the psoas is very much associated with sympathetic nervous system firing. Let's bend the knees and windshield wiper. So if you're under a lot of stress or you've been like clenching your body a lot, this happens to a lot of winter drivers because it's cold and the roads are icy and it's a little bit scary to drive, so they clench. You can get quite a tight, cranky psoas, so this can be really relieving to that. Let's try that straightening of the legs. So this is basically hip extension we're doing. I'm pressing my toes. I'm going to lift my knee and soften down. Again, press and lift and soften down and press and lift and soften down. Good, and now I'm just changing my position a little bit, rolling the ball, letting the ball come down, and I'm starting to push the ball, the abdominal wall into the ball and softening around it again. Push and soften. You know, if you're a little too close to the center, you'll know it. It feels like you're, you know, pushing right into your intestines, which you probably are. But if you're off to the side, closer to the hip bone, then the position of the ball will aid to push those viscera out of the way. They're slippery, they'll slide out of the way, and you'll be able to get deeper so you can put pressure on the psoas. Okay, now we're gonna move the, let's do the windshield wiper. You can move upper body too, but windshield wiper is a little bit more effective here. So if you really want to get lots of work done, you're gonna do lots of this. This gets you really deep. And then you can stop and do the hip extension. Do that 3 or 4 times. And remember, you always have the option to do this one, but this is really a lot of pressure, so maybe not for the first few times. We're going to change our position one more time, and we want to be across those tendons. It feels like you're up against the bone, and that's where you should be. Okay, and we're pushing out into the ball and softening again. Push it out and soften. Push it out and soften. And then windshield wiper across those tendons. If you're feeling like, you know, anytime you go into tissue that feels like way too intense, just try to move it a little bit so you're in the same neighborhood, but you're out of the intensity. You'll be just as effective, I promise. And then we'll try extending the knee and hip extension. Once again, this feels really good now. And one more time. And then I'm going to use my arms. I'm going to see about going through that tunnel one more time. And good. And then I can come up. Beautiful. So a way to just feel into what we were just working on is to bring your right foot forward and tuck your seat, and you'll notice probably an alarming lack of resistance in that deep hip flexor that you would normally feel resistance. So this can be a nice way to finish up. And let's try that on the other side. Keep your butt tucked, pull your belly in, and just ease forward and back just a little tiny bit. And you'll notice that. Very, very good. All right, so that is working on hamstrings, diaphragm, and psoas, okay? And I hope that really helps you feel a little bit better, a little freer around your pelvis and your hips and your breath. So enjoy, and maybe take a little bit of Shavasana, rest that out, or go to sleep now. That's another good solution. So thank you so much for joining me. If you enjoyed, please like the video, and I will see you next time. Thanks so much for joining me. Bye for now.